This is now officially something to worry about as Toronto Raptors fans, as this organization has had a major shift in regards to ownership, and a lot has been written about Masai Ujiri's contentious relationship with Edward Rogers out there in the past. And now with some recent developments, there are concerns about how this new ownership group will actually govern the Toronto Raptors. And this bleeds into not just the Raptors, but the Leafs, the Jays, and a lot of the recent developments, how these three teams are going to be affecting each other, because we know the Blue Jays just spent a ton of money, as of late, giving Vladimir Guerrero Jr. a giant extension, and the Toronto Maple Leafs just had a generational flameout once again out there in the playoffs this year. And frankly, with the latest updates, there are a lot of moving pieces in regards to how this will affect the Toronto Raptors, and it's leading some to spell doom and gloom for this organization. So we'll break down what these latest updates are, why some Raptors fans are very, very concerned about what's going on, and frankly, look at both sides of the coin in terms of everything that's happening with this situation. So lots of stuff to break down, of course. Ownership, they're the big boss men. They really dictate. It's from the top down in terms of how everything runs. So, this is fairly interesting. So we'll dive into all of that. But folks, you guys have been crushing. I say it on most of the videos, but 52% of you haven't hit the subscribe button just yet. Appreciate every single one of you that are tuning in to the latest Toronto Raptors news coverage. We're delivering daily Raptors content out here on the channel, so make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. If you've been watching the vids, you've been tuning in, you're liking the off-season updates, and you haven't hit the sub button just yet, it's free. It's just down below, and it helps out the channel a ton. So appreciate every single one of you, but let's dive into it, because we all know, if you've been watching this channel for a long time, Masai Ujiri, the president of basketball operations, has had a weird history with, a member of the ownership group in Edward Rogers, who is the kind of face of Rogers Communications in regards to the ownership piece with the Toronto Raptors. So there's been some stuff out there in the past. I'll dive into this further, but when Edward Rogers and Rogers ended up buying out the shares, it was reported, a few, I believe it was a year ago now at this point, maybe a little bit longer, but essentially when news came out that Rogers will become the predominantary player out there as the ownership group for the Toronto Raptors, there were some concerns. And now those concerns have come to fruition, as essentially news has come out today that today's sale of Bell's shares to Rogers of MLSE shares is to complete pending required league board approvals. Tomorrow's board meeting, likely the last, Pele, who's the CEO of MLSE, is expected to make organizational requests for the Raptors and Leafs that could see things looking significantly different. Now, this is coming at a very interesting time, not necessarily for the Toronto Raptors, but frankly, it has a serious impact on the Toronto Raptors, because frankly, if you don't know the Toronto Raptors right now have a pretty significant payroll, and the team is not very good. Now, this is done by design. The Raptors have been, under the guise of Masai Ujiri, facilitating a rebuild, getting younger. We saw a lot of young guys really develop and come to their own last season, but now they have an expensive roster that a new ownership group could look at and be like, hey, they were the 12th seed, or they were whatever seed the Raptors were last year. They were a disaster class. What are we doing here? Major shakeups, whatever's happening. And essentially, if you're not familiar with the backstory on this, because there is some new updates in terms of what's going on, but basically, Edward Rogers, say what you want about Masai Ujiri's last few seasons, up until the 2020, 2021 seasons, Masai Ujiri had A+ track record. If he had a grade, it would be A++, 100% on the test. He brought this team a championship when it was an organization that felt like had no business being in the championship picture. He made great moves. He developed players. Masai Ujiri was the golden boy for this Raptors team, and Edward Rogers did not want to pay him. He did not want to pay Masai. Now, with some of the moves over the past few seasons, the Raptors going through rebuild, some people say, hey, maybe Edward Rogers is a visionary. He was smart, and we shouldn't have paid him. But I digress. I still think it's just horrific, a bad sign for a guy that brought you a championship, not wanting to pay him and, respect what he did for your organization, having a contentious relationship there. Now, there was a lot made of it at the time. Masai Ujiri's kind of squashed the beef publicly and said this about the impending ownership group coming in, saying, I don't see anything to worry about. It's a unique that people see it as new. We have had Edward Rogers and Tony and these guys for years, as long as I've been here, and so no relationships have changed. Everything has been normal. I think having a unique CEO like Keith Pele, he really takes on the leadership role. He really communicates with all of the team and sees growth of all of the teams. It's different in some kind of ways, but It's what you want. In the organization, I've had the same relationships, all these people. Keith was new, but it's honestly been great. But overall, it's been the same relationship, which I'm happy about. So Masai had a lot of positive things to say. Again, the ownership, the sale wasn't official, and Masai ally out there in the ownership group has been Larry Tannerbaum, who is, Kilmer Sports is his official, stake ownership in MLSE, but him and Masai have a very tight relationship, and then, with Edward Rogers, the rest of it was a bit back and forth, as it is, top-level negotiations, all those types of things. But Masai said all positive stuff, but the thing that makes this very interesting, because firstly, the sale's official now, essentially. It's going through today. It's going to get approved by the league. The Rogers already an ownership group, so that's going to go through. The thing that makes this concerning, and the thing that has your Raptors fans concerned, it doesn't even have as direct an impact on what's going on here now at this point, because first, Rogers not having the, backing of Bell in terms of extra cash, in terms of extra money going around, there's been concerns about penny pitching in the past from Rogers, especially with the Masai Ujiri situation, and, they've had a, track record of not making the right decisions, and the Toronto Blue Jays are an example of this, and we saw this, this season for the Jays, it's off season for the Raptors, but they ended up giving Vladimir Guerrero Jr. a 14-year, $500 million extension. Now, that's something, as the casual Jays fan, check out Jays Digest if you want, deep dives in the Blue Jays, but basically it's good to keep a star player around. Happy they gave him that money and they forked over that type of bread, which might be like, oh, Ben, what are you stressing about? The Rogers proved that they were able to, give some serious money out. They're willing to give that bread. Look at this headline. Look at everything that's going on here. They are going to dish out some bread to keep these star players on the roster. Well, I take, for this type of stuff, I'm a little bit more cynical because now there's a bunch of money tied up in one of these sports teams in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And frankly, the Blue Jays have not been great. I mean, they are very, very mid this season, and it's, they might trade Bo Bichette. They did have a 14-point win today, so that's check out Nick's reaction to that on Jays Digest. But I don't know. They're a mid team. They have a lot of money tied up in some stars, and frankly, it's big investments that might be a little bit sketchy in terms of whether or not they're paid off. So that's going on with the Jays. And then the new reports that are coming out regarding, the Toronto Maple Leafs, that is even crazier, as essentially they just had if you're not keeping up the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Jays, the Leafs, and the Raptors are all owned by the same group, just for context as well. Now with Rogers being there, it's MLSE for the Jays and Raptors, or for the Raptors and Leafs, but the Toronto Blue Jays are fully owned by Rogers. So it's technically different ownership groups, but now the main player, the main decision makers are up there out front. But the Toronto Maple Leafs just had another generational flameout, ugly loss, whatever the heck you want to call it, and we knew that Mitch Marner's probably going to be on the way out. We knew that there was going to be some shakeups if they didn't make the postseason this year. Or if they didn't make the conference finals, the finals, the cup this year. But basically, they're a CEO. So Brendan Shanahan, that is the guy that's ran all the business operations for MLSE now at this point. He is expected to be on the way out now after the Leafs had a messy situation. Now, he was pretty hands-off in terms of the basketball decision-making with the Raptors. Masai, the president of basketball operations, had full control and stuff there. But the concerning part about this, and say, what's going on with the Leafs? The Leafs flaming out has nothing to do with the Raptors, but basically, what has come out as of late from the latest buzz, the latest chatter, is MLSE is absolutely embarrassed with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and it's sort of, they brought up the Raptors in here too. The Raptors have been bad. Like, this team has not been good. It's the reality of what's happening. And MLSE is disappointed. They're mad. They're frustrated with how bad these teams have been as of late, and they want to make overhauling changes. Specifically, this is mostly in the context of the Leafs. The Raptors were kind of name dropped in these things as well, but basically, they want to come out and make some wild changes. Now, again, this isn't a Leafs channel by any stretch of the imagination, but there's rumors Brad Treveling might be, on the way out, who's a new GM that didn't do anything really wrong. I'm not the guy for Leafs analysis. Plug in Jays and Leafs Digest here. We're talking a big mesh and crossover episode, but basically, the Toronto Maple Leafs might fire their GM, which doesn't make a ton of sense, but it's just in a way to clean house. And the Raptors, at least the Leafs made the playoffs, made the second round, brought to a Game 7, and if there's unchanneled ownership, if there's not Larry Tannerbaum with enough power to sever decision maker or make adjustments, that has led a lot of people to be concerned that, hey, sweeping changes might be coming to management out here at this point. If Treveling's gone out there with the Toronto Maple Leafs, shocking decisions could be made to Masai Ujiri's contract is up following the 2026 season, and then also, RJ Barrett, guys on this team, if we're not good and we're not making, the playoffs and stuff, why are we spending so much money on this cap? Like, the Raptors aren't here, or they aren't good halfway through the next season. Don't be shocked if the ownership group ends up coming in and makes us make penny-pinching moves, like trading away RJ Barrett for something stupid, which, again, I've been outspoken as something that I do not want to see for this team. So it is something that I am officially concerned about. I am worried about. I am, taking a look at it, not sure. We'll see how things go. But let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section down below. You guys are the best thing as far as subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.